Welcome to Anything is Possible, hosted by Dr. Cliff Robertson. Over the next hour, you're going to begin to see a future full of the life you have imagined. Listen in close and come to understand that you are a masterpiece with a mission. Now, here is Dr. Cliff Robertson.
Hey, good afternoon. This is Dr. Cliff. So glad to be with you today. It's a good day to be here, getting a chance to talk with you guys and share. And truly, if we stop and think about it, anything is possible. If we really set our minds to it, if we are focused, if we, can create the right kinds of routines and processes, we can do it. But a lot of times we are still struggling. We may have bought all the right books. We may have tried all the strategies and tried this and that, and we're just feeling done. We're just feeling worn out. And a lot of times this can kind of lead us to a place where we were experiencing burnout. Maybe it's in our profession, maybe it's in our business, maybe it's in our relationships, maybe it's just we're burned out with life because let's face it. I mean, the pace of life today is 100 times faster than it used to be, at least, if not more. So, burned out, I mean, I don't know how many times I've said in my own life, man, I'm just done. I'm just done. I'm just going to check out. But the problem with that is I still needed to eat on a regular basis. I still needed to keep the lights on. So I really couldn't just check out. I still had to work. So today's show is going to be focused on the strategies for overcoming professional burnout. Yeah, strategies for overcoming professional burnout. And I think this is going to be a powerful show for you because if we're going to tie into this philosophy of anything is possible and that we are a masterpiece with a mission, that means that we have something very important in our life that we need to accomplish. And if you hear some stuff in the background, that's just my dogs and doing some work outside. So please forgive it. Anyway, but you see, in the pursuit of our professional endeavors, we find ourselves walking this tightrope between passion and exhaustion, purpose and burnout. The demands of our career can sometimes weigh heavily upon us, threatening to extinguish the flame that once ignited our enthusiasm and drive. It just kind of wants to drown us out. Yet, in the face of adversity, there exists a path to renewal, a journey of resilience, self discovery, and growth. So, we're going to talk about 10 key strategies for overcoming professional burnout in our show today. And I'm also going to kind of talk you through some of these scenarios a little bit. So, first one is, and this is my favorite topic to talk about, that is rediscovering your why. Rediscovering your why. Again, I apologize for the dogs. But in the hustle and bustle of our daily lives, it is easy to lose sight of the reasons why we embarked on this journey in the first place. Take a moment, if we will take a moment to reconnect with our purpose, our passion, and the driving force behind our career, maybe we can begin to rediscover our why. Remember the dreams that once fueled our ambition and let them reignite the fire within you. One of the things I do in one of my keynotes is we're going to discover fire for the second time in human history, but this time inside of you. That's where I go back to discovering your why. That maybe we need to build a better why. And as we do that, we can see that uh, that this purpose is bigger than our current pain, our current challenges, our current distress, our current level of exhaustion. And maybe we do need to take a day off. Maybe we need to take a week off. Then we need to get back at it. Let me share with you a quick story. In the depths of burnout, Sarah found herself questioning her career choices and feeling disillusioned with her work. Yet, in a moment of clarity, she revisited the memories of her childhood, the moments of inspiration, the dreams of making a difference, the spark of passion that ignited her soul. In that moment, she realized that her purpose was still alive within her, waiting to be rediscovered. You see, Sarah and many of us along the way, we can get so caught up in the grind, we lose sight of the bigger picture. We lose sight of the why behind it. Because see, I believe that if we are locked into our why, we can endure anyhow. I know someone else mentioned that who's very famous, and I can't remember their name right now. But but I think that if we will really lock into that why, we can really change our lives. We really can. And as we and as we seek to rediscover that why, it's also important for the next part, and that is that we set good boundaries. Again, if we're going to overcome burnout, we need to make sure that we're setting good boundaries. See, boundaries are essential for preserving our well-being and preventing burnout. A lot of times burnout can become because I'm stretched too thin, I'm trying to do too much, I'm trying to do, Bob, Susie's, Jane's, Bill, and Wayne's job when I'm really only supposed to be doing my job. And and when we're stretched so thin and can't get it all done, then we get burned out and we get stressed because we feel like everybody's counting on us. But if we set good boundaries from the beginning, we can begin to avoid some of that. We need to learn to say no to tasks and commitments that drain our energy and prioritize activities that nourish your mind, body, and soul. Remember that self-care is not selfish, it is necessary. It is a necessary act of self-preservation. And so many times, and I'm going to park on this for a minute, so many times we ignore the fact that we need to take care of ourselves. We will allow ourselves to be completely poured out with nothing pouring back into us. And we wonder why we just don't have the energy to keep going. We wonder why we feel so overwhelmed and unable to get the fire going. That's because we haven't set the boundaries that we need. You see, for years, Alex had been a chronic overachiever, always saying yes to every request and stretching himself thin in the process. But as the weight of burnout began to crush him, he realized that something had to change. With courage and determination, Alex started setting boundaries, reclaiming his time, and prioritizing his well-being. And in doing so, he discovered a newfound sense of freedom and vitality. You see, as we do that, as we find that new sense of freedom and strength and vitality, we can go deeper, we can do better, we can end up doing more because we're filled up again. And one of the ways that happens is in our third thing called practicing self-compassion. You say, "Well, what is that, Cliff? I don't even know what self-compassion is." Self-compassion is being good to yourself, being kind to yourself. One of the things in the Bible that I love so much is how both Peter and Paul talk about grace being multiplied, an abundance of grace. And I believe that part of that is that we need to extend grace to ourselves. We need to be gentle and kind with ourselves, especially in times of struggle. We need to realize that we have been batting 1000% coming through tough times. In other words, we have got through every one of them, and we'll get through this one. The burnout will happen. It's going to occur sometimes. But if we can believe in ourselves and extend ourselves the same grace and mercy and all that we would give someone else. And in doing this, we also need to acknowledge that we have limitations. Now, I know all the motivational speakers in the world say, well, you are without limits, you're this, you're that. Well, that's a load of crap. Okay. It just is. We do have limits. We do have there's only 24 hours in a day. We only have so much energy. We only have so much time. We have to spend some time resting. We have to spend some time eating. We have to have this downtime. And if we don't, we burn out. And we burn out in some ways by simply not being good to ourselves. But as we acknowledge our limitations, we can then turn around and celebrate our strengths and treat ourselves with the same kind of compassion and kindness that you would extend to anybody else, a friend, a family member, a coworker. Remember that imperfection is who we are, and that perfection is an illusion. Imperfection is a beautiful part of the human experience. Perfection is above our pay grade. We are incapable of going there. Another quick story for you. As Emily grappled with her feelings of inadequacy and self-doubt, she realized that she had been her own harshest critic for far too long. With each mistake and setback, she berated herself mercilessly, feeding the flames of burnout. But in a moment of grace, she chose to extend compassion to herself, to embrace her flaws, to forgive her shortcomings, and to love herself unconditionally. And in that act of self-compassion, she found the strength to rise from the ashes of burnout and embrace her inherent worth. One of the people I follow on social media, and I'll get her name after the break, is a former Thunderbird Air Force pilot, the Air Force Thunderbirds, and she um, I guess retired from from being a fighter pilot with the Air Force, and now she talks about these things. And one of the things that she talks about is there's this big inner critic that's working on us, big inner critic that wants to tell us all the things that we can't do, all this inadequacy that Emily was dealing with, and self-doubt. But we have to realize is that um, that's an opinion and not a verdict. It's not deciding that we are done, that we are used up. What it's telling, what we have to do is we have to learn to silence those inner critics, because it will tear us apart. And one of the ways we do that is by being good to ourselves, believing in ourselves. And this leads us into our next point, and that is cultivating this positive, empowering, and engaging sense of mindfulness. A lot of people want to say, what is mindfulness? I mean, really, we throw that word around and everybody wants to say, well, you need to be more mindful. We need to have this sort of mindset or whatever. Well, here is what mindfulness is. How are we thinking and believing about ourselves? I mean, really, how do we think and believe about ourselves? Do we believe that we are capable of more? Do we believe that we need to work ourselves into the ground? Do we believe in a certain way that is destructive? It is so easy to do that. But what I want you to do, and this is something that I've developed, is I want you to develop this masterpiece mindset, which leads us to this masterpiece mindfulness, if you would. Okay. The masterpiece mindset is this. And I realize that some people listening do not follow the Bible. And you know what? I think this is important whether you follow the Bible or not, because God created us all. And here's the truth. And he says, for you are God's masterpiece, created anew in Christ Jesus for the good work that he ordered for you from the beginning of time. In other words, you are a masterpiece with a mission. This mission, I don't know what it is for you, but you have one. And if you have a mission, that means that you're important. And when you're important, that means that your value is so much higher. I wrote a book about a year and a half ago called Your Life Matters. And in that, we do something called do the math. When we talk about your worth, I talk about doing the math. And after the break, we're going to go to a break here in a minute. You finish this part up. After the break, we're going to do the math together. So, but I want you to think about that. But you are far more valuable than you realize. You see, in the midst of chaos and uncertainty, we need to cultivate this mindfulness And the way we do that is in creating stillness, moments of stillness, and moments where we are quite literally present with ourselves. Phones are off. Notifications are off. We're not watching TV. There's no other inputs. We're just taking a moment to just be and just breathe and just feel whatever it is we're feeling. Process it out and just keep, just tell ourselves that, listen, I'm a masterpiece. Yeah, the world may see a mess, but I'm truly a masterpiece and I've got a mission. I may not know what it is yet, but I'm going to discover it. And you just keep believing that, keep saying it, and you'll be amazed at how this comes about, how this cultivates this sense of mindfulness in your work. And all of a sudden you go from being, well, 70% of America is dealing with either depression, anxiety, or a extremely low sense of self-esteem. So much so that it's impacting their capacity to work. It's impacting their um, creativity. They don't want to work. They get sick more often. All these things in their mind, it's created. Now the things that it creates are real. It's not just in your mind. It's real. In fact, what's interesting is the leading reason that EMS is called out for heart attacks is actually an anxiety attack, which gives the exact same symptoms as a real heart attack. This is real. But what if we flip the script on all of it? And we started believing differently about ourselves. Started believing in a higher power that wants the absolute best for us. Creating that and cultivating that sense of mindfulness that we're here for a reason, for a purpose. Now, I've got to go to a break, but I want you to hang on with me because out of this break, we're going to do the math and you're going to be able to determine your value in this world. And I'll give you, and I'll give you a hint. It's beyond anything you could even begin to imagine. And it's pretty exciting to put into actual numbers. This is Dr. Cliff Robertson Jr. with Anything is Possible. And we'll be right after this. We'll be back right after this break. It's going to change your life. Talk to you in a minute.
You're tuned in to Anything is Possible with Dr. Cliff Robertson. If you have a question for Dr. Robertson or his guests, you can join us on the show at 888-346-9141. That's 888-346-9141. Now back to the show with Dr. Cliff Robertson.
Well, it is so good to be back with you. I have missed you. I'm kidding. I'm just being funny. This is Dr. Cliff, and I am so glad that you're hanging with me. I made a promise before we went into the break, and the promise was that we would talk about your value and how we can do the math. And I love this scenario. And I'll tell you that in a very real way, I came up with it by working with people in the mental health space. As I was working with a guy, he was struggling with his value and his worth, and didn't think that he needed, that there was any reason for him to be here anymore. He was actually quite seriously had considered the idea of suicide. Yeah, it's pretty dramatic. So we kind of worked through it. And what we came up with is the impact that he is having on the world around him. So let's kind of walk through that. In his job, he came in contact with between 20 and 30 people each week. And if we were to take 25, that is, and we're talking about 25 to 30, 20 to 30 new people each week that he would come in contact with. So that is 1,300 per year that he comes in contact with, and it has some sort of positive interaction with. And in his daily life, between going to the store and he volunteers at his church and sets up chairs and does some things with his church, and he comes in contact with probably another 50 or 60 new people. So let's just take 55. So that's an additional 2,800 plus. So really about 4,100 people he's coming in contact with on a yearly basis and making a positive impact in their life at some level, probably more than that. But let's just take that number. If we were to extrapolate that over, say, a 2-year period, he's filling up most basketball arenas, almost 10,000 people that are his fans, whose lives have been positively impacted because he was there. Think about that a minute. Just do the math with me for a moment. Over 2 years, he has that many people, almost 10,000 people, he has made a positive impact on their life. If we extrapolate that over, let's say, 10 years, we're filling major NFL college football stadiums. Think about that a minute. That many people, we've had a positive impact. And if we were to extrapolate that, let's say that the 41 people we had a positive impact on their lives, those people then turned around and had a positive impact on other people's lives because of the inspiration they received from us. How many more could that number be? How much value could that be? It could be absolutely priceless. One of my favorite stories is a story that ties right into this. It's where this guy is buying coffee every morning. He goes to a drive-thru. It's not one of the fancy places. It's just, let's just say it's a McDonald's coffee. He goes to the drive-thru and he buys the person's coffee behind him every morning. That's what he's been doing. And it comes to a point where he just doesn't know how much of an impact it's having, whether it matters, whether anybody really cares. It's not like it's a big thing. It's just a couple of dollars, whatever. And then one Saturday morning, as he's thinking through this, he picks up the newspaper. He gets a newspaper, and he's reading through, and he found a letter to the editor. And the letter said, "The cup of coffee that saved my life." Well, this guy had been buying coffee every morning at the same place in the same town for years. But that one particular morning, he decided that he was done with life. He was burned out. He was done. He was ready to call it quits. So he was going to go through and get his final cup of coffee because it's something he enjoyed, and he was going to drive out into the country and take his own life. He was done. He had the means, he had the method, he had everything he needed to do it. But the guy in front of him bought his coffee. Simple act of kindness that this man had been doing for years. Bought his coffee that morning. He got up to the window and he was getting ready to hand the guy his money, and the guy said, "No, the guy in front of you bought your coffee for you. You're good to go." And he was immediately caught up in the emotion of the moment because he didn't think anybody cared. He didn't think he mattered. His life was over. His life was just done, absolutely done. And in that moment, he realized that he did matter. In fact, it made such an impact on him in that moment that he turned around and bought, coffee for the person behind him, and then went home, hugged his wife and children, talked with her individually, and told her what was going on. He got the help he needed, but the coffee saved his life. And he wrote this to the editor. And I want you to think about this a minute. That one simple act of kindness saved a man's life. How much is that man's life worth? He is priceless. If he is a masterpiece, like we call him, then he is priceless. There's no number you can put on it. there's no telling what somebody's going through that you're around. So if we exert a little kindness, maybe that's not it. Maybe it's something else. Next show, I'll share something that I've done before. And but see, here's the other impact. It made such an impact on the guy who bought the coffee that he was convinced that he would never stop doing that. Let me give you another quick story. And this is not quite so dramatic, but amidst the whirlwind of deadlines, meetings, and endless to-do lists, James found solace in the practice of mindfulness. He just knew that he needed something different. So he started getting silent, plugging things into his mind and his heart that were positive. Each morning, he carved out a time for meditation, allowing himself to sink into the depths of stillness and silence. And in those moments of quietude, he discovered a profound sense of peace and clarity, a sanctuary amidst the chaos that helped him to become reinvigorated, helped him to latch on to his why, be consistent with his boundaries, and really make that mindset, that mindfulness, a consistent part of his life from now on. These things are important. The next part of this, though, is you see, one of the things that really helped that guy I just mentioned about the the one guy I bought coffee for is that once he went home and he talked to his wife about it and he shared, they immediately sought professional help. They sought support. And that's the next point we need to go over. When you're struggling with burnout, when you're struggling with life, you don't have to navigate this journey alone. You see, burnout affects so many of us. And there's somebody there that can help you. Maybe it's professional help. Maybe it's friend, family, colleagues. But you can get that kind of help. Seek that help. Share your struggles openly and honestly, and allow yourselves to receive the love and support that surrounds you. Because just as I shared a minute ago, your value, you're pouring into all these other people. And guess what? Maybe they're looking for an opportunity to pour into you. Maybe they think you're Superman or Superwoman and you don't need any help. The truth is you do. But they don't know that until you say something. Closed mouth doesn't get fed. A closed heart doesn't get poured into, doesn't get the help it needs. So seek support. Here's another quick story. When Jessica found herself teetering on the brink of burnout, she felt overwhelmed and alone, trapped in a prison of her own making. She wanted to be done. But then she decided, I'm going to share with my friend. And then she shared with one, and then she shared with several. And then before you know it, she realized that she was not alone, that there were countless others who had the same struggles and stood ready to offer their support. And in their presence, she found strength to carry on. See, it can just be as simple as, hey, I need help. I I can't do this. I don't want to do this anymore. There you go. You don't reach out. A lot of times people don't know that you need help. Because let me say this too. Sometimes we get really, really good at wearing the mask of, I'm good. I'm all good. How are you? Let me deflect the conversation away from me so I don't have to answer these questions honestly. And I can focus more on you because I'm more comfortable doing that, even though I need more help than I can say. And I'm struggling to even stand upright. But I'm not going to tell you that because I'm here for you, not me. Truth is, we need to open our mouths and say, you know what? I'm not good. I'm not okay. And that's not okay. And there's that old saying, I'm okay. I'm not okay. And that's okay. No, it's not. It's not okay. It's not okay to not be okay. When you find yourself not okay, find some help. Again, whether it's professional help or it's friends, family, whatever that looks like. I want you to do it. I want you to do it. As we seek that help, one of the things that I want you to do, and this is the next point in all this, and that is prioritizing self-care. We talked about self-compassion. We talked about those things before, but I want this to become a priority in your life. Because if we're going to believe that anything is possible, that we can accomplish anything, that if we have this mission, we're going to be able to do it. It may be a grind, it may be hard, but if we're completely poured out all the time and unable to stand up and unable to continue to go, what good are we? So I want you to prioritize self-care. As a mental health professional, oftentimes I see people and they say, "Well, you know what, man, I'm good right now. I don't really need to see or talk to anybody." And what I tell them is, then let's get on a monthly or quarterly maintenance where you just kind of have someone to talk to for, for half an hour. We don't have to spend an entire session, but just kind of a check up from the neck up kind of thing. And what we found is that in doing that, the roller coaster of up and down tends to kind of level out and be a slow, steady climb as opposed to these sharp declines followed by these radical, turn ups and down. I mean, it kind of smooths it out and it creates a sense of true wellness. I want you to make self-care though a non-negotiable part of your daily routine. One of the things that I really am big on are what I call non-negotiable daily disciplines. As we walk through some of this, the self-compassion, the mindfulness, the meditation piece, the things like that that help you overcome burnout, and the prioritizing your self-care is so important. Shouldn't necessarily be a part of your routine. You need to nourish your body with healthy food, part of your self-care. Exercise regularly. One of the things that I find is that when I exercise regularly, I feel better. I have that emotional strength because of my own exercise. Getting plenty of rest. If you don't get the rest you need, you can't do the job you need to do. The other thing I want you to do is engage in activities that bring joy and fulfillment. Things that are just fun. Go to a concert. Take a walk in the park with your dogs. Whatever that looks like for you, whatever that is, have some fun, laugh, go to a comedy club, laugh, have fun. It will change everything for you. Remember that self-care is not a luxury. It really isn't. It's a fundamental, I can't even speak, fundamental aspect of maintaining your well-being and thereby overcoming or avoiding burnout altogether. Let me share another story real quick. In the midst of her hectic schedule, Maria had always neglected her needs in favor of serving others. She was that she was that patron saint of over-serving and under-caring for herself. But as burnout began to take its toll on her health and happiness, she didn't know what to do, but she knew that something had to change. She was thinking that maybe that she just wasn't cut out for this, that she just needed to quit. That wasn't it because this was what she wanted to do. She wanted to be of service to others. So with newfound resolve, she made self-care a top priority, carving out time to exercise, relaxation, and meaningful connection with friends, going out and enjoying herself, having fun. And in nurturing her own well-being, she discovered a new sense of vitality and purpose, and her why became electric. Now she was able to bring more energy, bring her best self to the day as opposed to just what was left over. Because see, that's what happens when we don't prioritize self-care we're able to just bring the leftovers. We have nothing left to give, but we show up anyway. And I'm going to tell you, while that is admirable, it is killing you. It is quite literally killing you. I remember before I left an organization that I founded, I remember telling my wife that this is killing me. And saying those words out loud made me know that this is what I needed to do. I needed to be able to step away. I needed to be able to focus on me. I needed to be able to focus on her. I needed to be able to do the things necessary to be, to get back to being okay. I gotta tell you, it was one of the best things I'd ever done. We're just about out of time for this segment. But in just a minute, we'll be back. And out of the break, we're going to talk about something that is so much fun. And that is making sure that we celebrate our victories, celebrate our small victories, our large victories, our medium victories. We need to be learning to celebrate. And it's okay to say, you know what? I won. I got this. We did this. This achievement happened and it's good. And to celebrate, that isn't about bravado or ego. It's just you won and we need to celebrate our victories. I want to thank you so much for hanging in with me. After the break, we're going to talk more about that. This is Dr. Cliff Robertson Jr. with Anything is Possible, the show where you come to learn that you are truly a masterpiece with a mission. We'll be right back.
You're tuned in to Anything is Possible with Dr. Cliff Robertson. If you have a question for Dr. Robertson or his guests, you can join us on the show at 888-346-9141. That's 888-346-9141. Now back to the show with Dr. Cliff Robertson.
Hey, and welcome back to the show. This is Dr. Cliff, and it's so good to be here with you today. We've been talking about burnout and overcoming burnout, and we've talked about a lot of different things today. We've talked about rediscovering your why, your real purpose, setting boundaries, practicing self-compassion, cultivating mindfulness, seeking support, prioritizing self-care. And right now we're getting ready to dive into something, and it's just a short little section, but it's called Celebrate Your Small Victories, or large victories for that matter. In the midst of adversity, it is essential to celebrate even the smallest of victories, whether it's completing a task, overcoming a challenge, or making it through another day. I mean, let me say that again, or simply making it through another day. Take time to acknowledge and celebrate your achievement. Remember that every step forward, no matter how small, brings you closer to your goals. See, if we'll take a moment and say, you know what, I won today because I got most of what I had on my to-do list done. Maybe I didn't get everything done, but look at what I did do. As a story, as David battled burnout, he worked in IT, and there was constant changes, and things were constantly going up and down, and they were battling cyber attacks and this and that. And he was just battling burnout. He found himself consumed by feelings of failure and inadequacy. It's almost impossible to keep up these days. But as he reflected on his journey, he realized that he had been discounting his own accomplishments, dismissing the countless victories that had brought him to this moment. With newfound gratitude and humility, he began to celebrate even the smallest of successes, recognizing the resilience and strength that lay within him. You see, as we celebrate anything for that matter, celebrating victories in particular, what happens is it releases chemicals in our brain that make us even happier, that that help renew and regenerate inside. And that's a beautiful thing. So we are doing ourselves a favor. We are making ourselves better by celebrating our victories. Think about that a minute. I mean, really think about that. I make myself better by celebrating victories. Why wouldn't we? Why wouldn't we do it? Why wouldn't we celebrate it, even if it's just something small, or again, maybe just getting through the day? Because think about it, if getting through the day has an impact on lots of other people, like we've talked about earlier in the value, getting through the day is a win on a global perspective. One of the things I wanted to share earlier and that I forgot about was the butterfly effect. I don't know how many of you have heard of it before. you've heard me speak very often, I often talk about it, but there was a meteorologist that wanted to study the impact of a butterfly flapping its wings on one part of the world and how it may or may not have an impact on weather patterns. And what he found out is that a single butterfly flapping its wings on one part of the world does impact weather patterns on another side of the world. We are that interconnected. What we do matters that much. So, if celebrating our victories makes us better, how much more does it help the people around us that say, wow, look at that. He accomplished this. He's celebrating. I want to be a part of that. I want to do that. That's a win, man. That's a win. And as we do this, I want to say that we find greater meaning and purpose in our lives, in our work, in our relationships, everything. And that's the next segment we're going to talk about, finding meaning and purpose. I want you to connect with the deeper meaning and purpose behind your work. You say, well, I'm just doing my job. No, you're doing more than just your job. Most of us do more than we're asked. And it's because there's a greater purpose. There's a meaning behind it. It's like the nurse or the caregiver um, who gives more than he or she is paid for. Why are they doing that? Because there's a deeper meaning. There's a greater purpose. There's the impact on lives that happens. And what we have to realize is that our lives have that kind of impact. Our lives have that kind of meaning. But it's more than just that. You see, whether it's the impact you have on others, the values you uphold, or the legacy you leave behind, I want you to find inspiration in the greater significance of your contributions. Find the inspiration behind them. Why do you do what you do? With me, my why, my mission is I want to make as big an impact on as many lives as possible for the good. I want to inspire, move, motivate, encourage, help to heal as many as I can before I leave this earth. That's my mission. That's what I want to do. And, and I'll tell you, it's certainly not about a paycheck. That's for sure. Because there are times when paycheck's not there, but you know what? There's still the need. There's still the need. There's still that. I mean, I'm here on this podcast. Nobody's paying me to do this. In fact, I'm paying to be a part of this. So I'm fine. There's got to be a meaning and a purpose behind it. And the meaning and the purpose is, how can I make as much of an impact as possible? How can I make as much of an impact as possible? You see, remember that even in the darkest times, there is light to be found in the pursuit of our meaning and purpose. You see, there are times when it is so incredibly hard that we want to quit, we want to lay it down, we want to say, you know what, I'm done. Let somebody else pick this up. I'm done. And you know what? That's where we may be. But if that's our real purpose and that's the meaning of our life, we can't lay it down. We may push the pause button for a minute, but we can't lay it down. We can't. And what I want you to take away from this point is, if we connect to the deeper meaning beyond the paycheck, beyond the title of how we're serving and impacting and helping others, that's going to get us through those dark times. That's going to help us overcome. It's going to help us overcome the burnout, the feeling of just being worn out. I mean, it's really important that we grab a hold of that. Here's another quick story. In the depths of burnout, Michael found himself questioning the significance of his work and doubting whether he was making a difference in the world. But as he reflected on the lives he had touched, the lives he had changed, he realized that his work was imbued with meaning and purpose far beyond what he had imagined. With renewed clarity and conviction, he embraced his role as a catalyst for change, determined to make a difference in the lives of others. Determined to make a difference in the lives of others. And that's where I hope you get to be. Determined to make a difference in the lives of others. The next thing we need to do, though, is as we're walking through this, we need to always make sure that we're practicing gratitude. If we cultivate that attitude of gratitude for the blessings and opportunities that surround us, we will find joy in the everyday. We don't have to have this crowning achievement. It can be something as simple as like the guy in the coffee line that bought us coffee. It could be the fact that, you know, we were able to get to work on time. Maybe the fact that we're still breathing. I had a friend that I went to high school with that I just saw. He had a quintuple bypass, and and he coded out several times. He's still alive. Talk about a change in perspective. Talk about changing everything. Oh, and by the way, you see me wear these different brand name things here. I am not sponsored by any of them, but if anybody from Titleist or Nike or Sonic or anybody else that I wear want to, please feel free to reach out. But that's another story for another day. But but what I want you to remember is that your gratitude is important. You see, when Sarah found herself in the depths of despair, she found solace in the act and practice of gratitude. Each evening, she took time to reflect on the blessings in her life, the love of her family, the support of her friends, the beauty of the world around her. And in the moments of reflection, she found a glimmer of hope amidst the darkness, a reminder that even in the midst of suffering, there's still beauty to be found. Still beauty to be found. You know, Sarah talks about doing it at the end of the day. I remember hearing Tony Robbins talk about that he starts his day with a gratitude routine that he does. I will tell you that I practice gratitude. I'll pray, and it may be at a point in my life where I don't have much, but I'm thanking God and I'm being grateful for everything I have. It doesn't mean that I don't ask for what I want or need, but I tell him how grateful I am for what I have. And I truly am. I truly am grateful. Now we're to our final section, and that is number 10, and it is seek professional help. You see, if burnout persists despite your best efforts, don't hesitate to seek professional help from a therapist or counselor. Professional support can provide you with the guidance, tools, and resources you need to navigate the challenges of burnout and reclaim your well-being. I will tell you that as a mental health professional, um, these issues are real. And the depression that comes along with it, the anxiety that comes along with it, the the other mental health challenges that can come along with it are real. And you don't have to fight these things alone. You don't. Seek the help that you need. Do not feel like that you have to just suck it up, buttercup, or rub some dirt on it, or pull yourself up by your bootstraps, or whatever type of trite saying you want to think about that you might need to do. There are people out there that are professionals and can help. I'm one of them. And if you want to do, some virtual work with this, unless you're in the Gulf Coast area of Texas, if you want to do some virtual work, you want to talk about it, I can certainly some do some work with you. I'd be honored. Um, and you can find me on my website. You can go to drcliffrobertsonjr.com, send me a message, all that, or you can email me at drcliff@drcliffrobertsonjr.com if you want to find out more about that. But I want to share a quick story. When Jason, and these are all real stories, when Jason found himself in the grip of burnout, he felt overwhelmed and helpless, unsure where to turn for help. But with the support of a compassionate therapist, he began to unravel the tangled web of emotions, confronting his fears and insecurities with courage and vulnerability. And in the process, he discovered a newfound sense of resilience and strength. See, one of the things that I want you to do is always realize you don't have to do this alone. You don't. You don't have to do it alone. You are not alone. And for those of you out there that are working in corporate America, one of the things that I do is I do workshops and I do keynote speaking where I talk through these things and, in small and large groups and work and do workshops on burnout and resilience and the anything is possible mindset. And, I would love to be a resource for you. So if you'd like to reach out to me, I talked a minute ago, you can email me at drcliff@drcliffrobertsonjr.com, or you can give me a call at 832-299-4137. And I'd love to talk to you about that. I'd love to be able to bring to you what I do, and maybe I can be of some value. Because you see, in the crucible of adversity, when the opportunity to forge ourselves anew, to rise from the ashes of burnout and emerge stronger, wiser, and more resilient than before, we need to be embracing these key strategies and cultivating this mindset of resilience and self-compassion. And when we do, we can overcome the challenges that threaten to distinguish our flame and emerge victorious in the pursuit of our dreams. When we do that, we quite literally discover fire again for the second time in human history. This time inside ourselves. This time inside ourselves. And I want you to do that. I want you to reclaim who you are and who you were meant to be. Thank you so much for listening today. This is Dr. Cliff Robertson Jr. with Anything is Possible. Have a great day, and I'll talk to you again next week.